Yes, the Holo Audio May. For those new to the NRD party, this is the DAC that stopped me dead in my tracks and cemented its place as my go-to reference. The May DAC truly is the heartbeat of my entire system. This stunning music-making machine seems to peel back every single layer of the resolution in the music, and at the same time sounds smooth as warm butter being poured on a biscuit. And while this DAC is still the king as far as I can tell, there is indeed one problem for many folks who crave the best, and that, my friends, is the price of admission. But what if I was to tell you that for less than half the price of the May DAC, there seems to be a rival that to me sounds a lot, and I mean a lot, like the May DAC. And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, let's find out what in the what I am rambling about. Alright folks, before we dive in, a quick disclosure. Denafrips reached out to me with the chance to review their Pontus 15th DAC. Also, they mentioned that I don't need to return the unit after my review is published. Whenever I receive a product this way, it's essential to be upfront and, for the sake of transparency, stay within FTC guidelines. Now, I didn't specifically ask to keep it, but I certainly appreciate the gesture. That said, my thoughts in this review are 100% my own. So, let's get into it and see what this DAC has to offer. One of the first things worth mentioning is that the build quality of the Pontus is nothing short of flawless. It's been a while since I reviewed the Terminator, but it's great to see that even with a more affordable DAC in the Denafrips lineup, you still get a device that is built like a freaking tank. That's right, there's no cheap plastic or cut corners on this all-metal body. All the buttons are tactile, the connections are solid, and everything feels incredibly sturdy. For those who remember, yes, I am looking at you, Sonnet Pasithea. Hold on. Like budget-oriented? Okay, this is not a setup. So this right RCA jack is actually loose. A DAC that costs 3 times as much as the Pontus, yet felt like the build quality was more of an afterthought. To keep it short and sweet, this thing certainly looks the part, and I am pleased to see Denafrips cares so much about the design and feel of all of their products regardless of the price. Taking a look at the Pontus from the front to the left, we are greeted with a power button and a bank of selections that makes navigating the control of the DAC very easy. With input, phase, oversampling, mute, and mode options front and center, folks will appreciate how easy it is to get this DAC up and running without cracking open a user manual. Above these selections, you will find confirmation LEDs which indicate your input and sampling options that are currently active in the DAC. On the business end, to the right, you will find a long list of digital inputs. USB, I2S, optical, AES, and coaxial via BNC are all included with the DAC, and in my listening, I used USB from my NUS Zenith along with I2S with Jay's Audio CDT3 Mark III transport. To the left of this bank, you will find a pair of balanced XLR outputs along with unbalanced RCA jacks. And last, smack dab in the middle below the ins and outs, you will find an IEC inlet for power. As for sampling options and specifications, I'm not going to bore you guys with every technical detail of the DAC, and I'll be concentrating on what matters the most, which is, of course, how it sounds. With that being said, I will leave a link down below for those who want to double check all of the details and look over the nitty-gritty, like DSD support. Typically, when I walk you guys through listening impressions, I set the stage of performance based on categories that are easy to follow and hopefully understand, whether it's treble, mid-range, or bass impressions. I think it's pretty easy to pick apart those differences, and I also believe that with sound clips serving as a companion, you find folks always seem to pick up whatever kind of nonsense that I'm putting down. So yeah, in a speaker review, this format certainly works. However, when it comes to DACs, while there can be differences heard in the bandwidth, it seems to me that a better approach is to unpack this from a completely different angle. Starting with the obvious, this is an R2R DAC, which, like my reference, the May DAC, does have a sound to it that to me sounds more engaging and, for lack of a better word, more analog. Listening to the Pontus, it quickly occurred to me that I appreciate this DAC in the same way that I appreciate the May DAC. And getting to my point, what I'm hearing and noticing isn't so much a specific part of the bandwidth, but more of a subtle thing that's quite a bit harder to communicate. To me, the Pontus sounds refined and smooth, but, like my May DAC, shines a light on all of the details that I am listening for. This balancing act of giving us the fireworks and at the same time doing it without sounding edgy, forward, or in your face is one of the things that great R2R DACs seem to do, and it's certainly one of the more noticeable things about the Pontus signature sound. Now, I'll get this out of the way right now. To me, the May DAC is better at resolving every single detail in the music, and as good as the Pontus is, it's not going to dethrone the May DAC anytime soon. But, and this might grab some attention, let's compare the Pontus to the recently reviewed Cyan 2, which to me is also a fantastic sounding DAC, especially at its price point. With both of these DACs priced under $2K, I'm sure many of you folks are going to be asking this in the comments section anyway, so let's just answer those questions right now. Focusing my attention on the Pontus, I kept noticing that the body or lower mid-range in the music was actually closer to what I hear in the May DAC. In contrast, the Cyan 2 was a little bit thinner in this region, trading it for a slightly more detailed and pristine top end. While the Cyan 2's top end performance and upper harmonics is stunning, it was the lower part of the mid-range where the Pontus seemed to pick up some slack and to my ears sounds a little bit more fleshed out. While it could be a coin toss for some folks, with some looking for a little bit more spark on top with the Cyan 2 and some looking for more meat on the bones with the Pontus, I think the Pontus sounds a little more meaty and robust in the lower mid-range. Folks who already have all of the details that they could ask for on top might appreciate what I'm hearing in the Pontus, where folks who were searching for a little bit more spark in the upper harmonics might be leaning in the camp of the Cyan 2. Either way, both DACs do sound incredible, and both of them offer an analog-like experience track after track. Now, when it comes to soundstage, this is another key area where the differences in a DAC can be heard, especially when the room is up to task, and of course, your speakers are no less than 367 feet into the room. No exceptions here, folks. Get them away from the walls. In the shed, I've listened to the Pontus rendering music into the wonderful sounding Galleon TS120, into some prototype speakers that GR Research and I are currently working on. Combined with 4 subs, 2 open baffle in the front and 2 sealed subs to my sides, this system is about as endgame as it gets. Firing up Qobuz and making my way through my playlist, the first thing that was obvious is that the Pontus is the kind of DAC that sounds open, it sounds deep, and it sounds wide. Being a sucker for soundstage and it being my primary goal when it comes to hi-fi, this is the exact sound that I am striving to achieve when putting a system together. Transparent being the key word here, and regardless of what I'm listening to, the system never calls attention to itself and the music is left alone. Now look, I know that speaker positioning is the key to achieving this, and the room must be in order, but make no mistake, my friends, even a DAC, yes, a DAC, can crash the soundstage party in a quick hurry. The good news is with the Pontus 15, I don't think that's going to happen. At no point did I hear anything that sounded forward, which is always the first thing that gives way to breaking that perfect performance. No, with the Pontus, It was very easy to discern exactly where Mr. Chris Stapleton was in death row, and as for the chains dragging and clanking around, they were a freaking football field away, creating a sense of depth, space, and that spooky three-dimensional atmosphere that's hard to believe for newcomers of hi-fi. So, while there are some folks who might chat about the treble, mid-range, and bass performance of this DAC, I'm going to leave that up to them. For me, the Pontus 15 is a straight line and delivers a linear presentation. I don't hear any issues in the bandwidth, nor do I hear anything that could be pointed at a lack of dynamics as well. To me, and far more important than just tone, the Pontus 15 doesn't just put the digital puzzle pieces back together again and call it a day. It seems to keep the soul of the music intact as well. Like my May DAC, it sounds inviting, it sounds smooth, and it sounds transparent, and at the same time delivers the fireworks that I am searching for at a reasonable price. In today's sound clips, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of trying to compare DACs being played in my system and through speakers in a room, we're going to hear the recorded samples straight from the DAC into my recorder. And to make things a little bit more interesting, I'm not going to tell you which DAC was which until the end of the review. So yeah, buckle up there, Buttercup, and toss on those headphones. You will hear sample A and sample B, and when the clips are done, I'll do the big reveal. You guys ready? Let's do this.
Engineer, where are you headed? Engineer, where are you headed?
No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más. No hubiera pensado que yo me iba a enamorar, jamás no quería saber nada más, nunca más.
So, you tell me, folks, trust your ears and cast your comments down below. Did you prefer sample A or sample B? Could you tell a massive difference between them? And if so, what differences did you notice? For me, this one is very close, and it is important to note that I've spent a lot more time listening to these DACs with a lot more material, and of course, everything being played back in my room where things open up, it makes it a little bit easier to hear some of the subtle differences, but in any event, here is the big reveal. Sample A was the May DAC, and sample B was the Pontus. Well, folks, there we have it. Denafrips has conjured up one of the better sounding DACs that I've spent time with and sounds good enough to easily recommend this DAC without batting an eye. The DAC is built like a tank, it's reasonably priced, and best of all, it sounds stunning. Again, while it won't dethrone my May DAC, the margins of gain seem to be shrinking as these companies like Denafrips are just getting better and better and better. And with that, I'll see you Denafrips loving audiophiles in the next video.